friends, welcome back to my channel. For this video, I just wanted to share a quick update on my A5 journaling. Last year when I did my journal recap for 2020, I mentioned that I wanted to challenge myself by journaling in an A5 notebook because I've never journaled in a notebook that big before. So I did exactly that at the beginning of 2021 and I did complete this notebook. It took me 2 months. The current conclusion that I have is I have a love-hate relationship with A5 notebooks. At the beginning of the year, I was definitely very optimistic about it. Here was the first page that I wrote, and I said that journaling in an A5 gave me a lot of room to breathe. I did have this white space on my page that made me really happy at the time, and I was learning to enjoy having extra space on my journal. I love that I was able to collage and do art journaling in an A5 and still have plenty of room for writing, so I really like this spread. But I didn't art journal every day. There were some days where I just wanted to enjoy having a couple of pages full of pure writing, and that's where I hit a wall with A5 because when I was doing just pure writing, say this page, I felt like I was drowning. It was just a lot of paper and I don't know, it wasn't comfortable for me. I guess I felt compelled to fill up a certain number of pages or a certain amount of space, and sometimes it just dragged on. And I know that's more of a me problem than the notebook's problem because there was no reason for me to pressure myself like that, but that was my honest feeling at the time. So when I was having pure writing days, this was just too much for me. I guess I could have just kept art journaling every day, but I didn't want to do that. I didn't always have time to do that. I didn't always have the energy to do that. And that's where my love-hate relationship for the A5 size comes in, because when I wanted to art journal, I really enjoyed this size. But when I wanted to do just writing, it felt like it just dragged on and on. I think ultimately A5 is too big for me. Now, I did manage to finish this notebook because, again, I identify as a finisher and I don't like leaving things incomplete, no matter how hard it gets. If I feel like I can't stand it anymore, I just try to repurpose the notebook in some way just to say that I finished it. That's just my personality type. So I did just stick with this as best as I could. One thing I will add is I have a lot of these pages where the pages are all taped up like this. Something that I've started doing is anytime I would go through something really tough, I would just write it out on my journal, and I never filter myself on my journal. If I'm having a really tough day mentally, emotionally, I let it all out because this is my journal. This is very personal and presumably no one's supposed to see it. So I just write whatever I think. It does help me a lot in processing my feelings and examining why I feel that way and all that. But at the same time, I don't want to look back on those feelings. I don't want to dwell on them, and I just don't want to look at them. So I write out whatever I want to write, and then I tape up those pages so that I never have to see them again. And that's something that's really helped me acknowledge the negative feelings that I was having while still not dwelling on them or looking back on them and falling back into that cycle of going through those emotions again. So February was a really tough month. So I have a lot of taped up pages in this journal, which yikes. Hopefully March is a lot better. That is my A5 experience so far. This is a Leuchtturm 1917 in the grid notebook. I do have another A5 notebook that I want to go through. I know I just said that I didn't like A5 for journaling, but I'm also trying to go through my empty notebook stash, so I went ahead and started my other A5 notebook. This one is lined, and I've noticed that the lined Leuchtturm has larger spacing than the grid. I think this is 6 millimeters, and then the grid has 5 millimeter spacing for their grids. Yep. So you have less lines per page on the lined notebook, so hopefully it feels less of a slog for me to journal in this. I know that I tend to give myself undue pressure as far as completing a notebook and journaling X amount of pages. I'm trying very hard not to do that, but journaling is a habit that I don't want to fall out of, so I do try to hold myself to a certain standard, but I think at this point in my life that standard is a little bit too high for me to meet. You know, that's part of the journey for me, I guess, and I do journal about that I expect too much of myself. That's something I'm working on. one thing I would like to add is I've been practicing this Copperplate script for my hand lettering, and it's been a lot of fun. I also have this reference in my first journal over here. So I started practicing right away in January, and I've pretty much done my date headings that way. So here is Sunday, February 28th, the last day of my time in this notebook. Then I started this journal on March 1st. So I'm still practicing this type of hand lettering, and it's been so much fun. Some letters are harder for me than others, but I'm just continuing to practice and improve on my Copperplate lettering, and I am slowly seeing improvement, which makes me really happy. So hopefully by the end of the year, I'll be a lot more comfortable doing this kind of lettering. And here's the cover that I am using. This is the Giglio A5 Appunto in the bubblegum. I was using the gray matte Croco, but for spring I wanted something brighter, something pink, so I switched to the bubblegum. And here in the pockets, I just have random washi tape and ephemera. This isn't very pretty, but I just like having these here just to remind myself that I have these washi tapes that I need to go through. And in the back pocket, I have some stickers that I don't like to use on my planner, so I'm trying to find a way to use them in my journal. And I pretty much use my journal as a way to use up stationery supplies that I don't really care for. It does help me think outside the box as far as art journaling goes, so it's still a lot of fun for me, but it definitely doesn't meet my usual vintage aesthetic that I like to do on my planners. And then as far as paper goes, I did enjoy the Leuchtturm paper. I like how thin it is. It's not as thin as Tomoe River paper, but I enjoyed it enough. It's not as smooth as the Tomoe River paper either, but I got used to it. I think I do enjoy the thinner paper. This Leuchtturm notebook is 80 GSM, I believe, and that's thin enough for me. I do have the Rhodia notebook also. That one's 90 GSM, and that one's already kind of pushing it. So, I don't know. I mean, with these things, you just have to get used to it. But I think for me, I definitely prefer thinner paper. And it is really good quality paper. So here's the pen test. You do see a little bit of bleed through on my Lamy tourmaline, but I noticed that my Lamy tourmaline bleeds through a lot of paper regardless. So I think it's more the ink than the paper itself. I will say that the Tomoe River paper does handle my Lamy tourmaline ink very nicely. So that is my quick update on my A5 journal so far. Once I finish this Leuchtturm notebook, I'm not really sure if I want to move to my A5 Rhodia just to go through it or move to an A6. I guess it depends on how I feel after filling this one up. Again, I have a whole stash of notebooks that I'm trying to go through, so I just wanted to try out the E5 and see how I feel about it. And then after my A5 notebooks, I have all these other sizes. I have a B5, a composition, and then I also have a bunch of pocket-sized notebooks, so it's all up in the air from here. So that is my quick journal update so far. Thank you so much for watching this video. This is Bao Bao Notes, and I'll see you next time. Bye!